Hamilton line, then take the subway right up to the Upper East Side. So then I'm watching the news and I'm hearing like homelessness, oh my God, it's so bad, the crime, and I'm like, wait, what? I'm working in the city. I have my mother who's like, are you okay? I'm seeing the news. And I was in a bubble. And then one day I was coming back from Albany, from the committee's meeting, excuse me. And I needed a drink of water. I was like, oh, and you know, if anyone's been to Penn Station lately, they're under a massive remodel. So I had to actually go up to 34th Street. When I tell you, the conditions were horrible. See, horrible.
Yeah.
I had to call my friend in disbelief, because remember, that whole year, I was just taking the subway up to the Upper East Side. The air's nice over there, right? Things are pretty. You don't see that. But then when I realized, like, New York, we are the crown jewel of the world. Anybody that's coming into New York City comes with that excitement. Like, I'm in the Big Apple. You come up that escalator at Penn Station.
Third world country.
And I think, you guys wouldn't believe me, but I literally was like, all right, let me go see what they're talking about. And I'm coming up the escalator, and unfortunately, a homeless woman had her pants down to her knees as I'm coming up. So all I saw was her rear coming, and I was like, oh, this is what's going on around Penn Station. But this needs to be addressed. When we're talking about our mayor, Bill de Blasio, who was at the Met Gala. All right, let's keep it clean. We're the classier party. Right? So he had the bravado to be at the Met Gala when our city's in shambles right now. So when we talk about how do we solve it, how do we fix it, the GOP has to support candidates. So just to share, like myself, I am in Southeast Queens. This race can be won. The reason why I invited you guys out here tonight is not only to hear about me, learn about me, but if you have some love for me, please donate to the campaign. And I'd be shameless if I That also means being in a district that's 70% Democrat, I was also able to reach matching funds. Many of you in this room, I received from $10 to $175, I received 8 times that amount. So if you could be kind enough, our next threshold deadline date is the 27th. But at some point tonight, it would be a disservice if I didn't mention how much I needed that little bit of a push to help me in October. Because I need those ad campaigns. I need to get my messaging out there. I need to let my community know that someone out there is willing to bring the resources and tools that will translate into policies that will help our community out. That's all. So we're just gonna do maybe like a wrap up, and then we're gonna open it for Q&A. How are we doing on time? I'm so sorry. Oh, perfect.
We're great on time.
Perfect.
So, the last question I want to talk about, I'll keep it brief because I think that, on that note, how do we help you get across the finish line? Obviously, Kim is working doing the Red Renaissance, trying to build an army of a coalition of the willing, so to speak, to make sure that we can give people the support they need in the races that seem as if time has forgotten them. But to this main point about messaging, how do we help the party sometimes get out of its own way, right? I often remark, even today, with the deplorable conditions we've seen on the southern border, it appears as if as a party we have to choose between having love and compassion for the Haitians who are being turned away for apparently no other reason other than the Democrats are afraid they might not vote for them. And also being able to say that we stand shoulder to shoulder with law enforcement on the border. We're doing a difficult job with both hands tied behind their back. And so Kim, I'll start with you. This notion of saying, how do we get the party to recognize, stop accepting the false choice that is placed before us by the left, and saying that we can have compassion, we can have love, and we can live the most bombastic iteration of our values if we need to, while at the same time understanding that we can support who we support, love who we love, and do both at the same time.
Thank you. Yeah, so just so you guys know, with our PAC, and this is why the GOP hates us right now, by the way. So So we actually have our own donor list, because we raised money, and a lot of it was outside of those that were, usual donors. We still have our donor list, so we'll be doing a rev share email with, and I think he probably already has Jason working on yours. So we'll run her name against those 100,000 donors that we have, so we can bring in some money that way for her as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's why we started with that, right? Because we know that a lot of people are not gonna get help because the GOP doesn't really believe in it. I get called names every single day on social media. Some of them are so bad, I'm suing. But,
Yeah.
but at the same time, you're gonna expect that, right? It's going to be tough. This is not easy. Your family's gonna get under, the microscope. People are gonna throw all kind of bullets at you. But you gotta keep going, keep your head down, and keep working. Obviously, still defend yourself. But at the same time, you have to understand that this is a very tough battle. And Vanessa has to raise a lot of money. Just so you guys know, in my race, just to send up one mailer to Republicans cost us $8,000, right? That's just
Yeah.
a mailer to Republicans. When you do the text messages and Facebook advertising, it is a lot of money. We spent $5 million on our race and still lost. It's a lot of money. And so it's tough, but it can be done, right? And that's what she was talking about, knocking on the doors, the grassroots part of it. Because we have to do the same. So even though maybe you're not in a position where you can give money, but if you can even volunteer, right? Door knocking, phone banking. I say you can call for Vanessa anywhere in the country, right? And call in her district and say, hey, don't forget to get out there and vote for Vanessa. Now, as far as messaging, I get called a rhino all the time. We had to actually hire Democrats to figure out where the moderate Democrats are in our district. It's a D+30. We're not going to win it unless we get the Democrats, right? So one thing that we had to change, and the Republican Party beat me up all the time on, was I didn't say pro-life. Now, I am pro-life. I chose my daughter, I'm pro-life. But for us, in Baltimore City, when you say pro-life, people automatically put their guard up. And they're like, oh, you're not giving me a chance to choose. I can't vote for you. So what we did is we didn't say pro-life. We said we're for over-the-counter oral contraceptives, right? We're for birth control pills over-the-counter, and you can decide if you want to take those pills or not. And for me, remember that whole thing when we were doing defund Planned Parenthood in the GOP? And we were pushing, that was before defund the police. Remember defund Planned Parenthood? Yeah. If you want to really defund Planned Parenthood, if we offer over-the-counter birth control pills, as 35 countries already does, what we do is then we take the federal funding from Planned Parenthood. They're only getting federal funding because they're providing the oral contraceptives. So if we do that, we can defund Planned Parenthood, and we can talk more about being pro-life. And so I just switched the messaging that way. And as soon as I said over-the-counter oral contraceptives, a lot of young women were like, you know what, maybe I can vote. They call me Miss Kim. Maybe I can vote for Miss Kim. Because that's something that we do need. And why even take that out of, take that out of the equation? They're only getting used to going to Planned Parenthood because they're going to get their oral contraceptives every 90 days. They only get them 3 months at a time. So just don't even get them in that front door, right? And that's how we change the messaging and take it back without being offensive to the other party or those voters that usually vote for the other way. And I know it sounds crazy, right? It sounds like we're going all the way around and coddling other people. And at the same time, that's how we change the message to get those voters to consider us. So Vanessa's going to get a lot of people that comes at her all kind of sideways because she's going to change the message. But she has to win. She has to. And then once you get in, you can say and do whatever you want. And that's what it is. Change the message, and then you get in there and you be the Republican you know that you can be.
So last question here to Vanessa, and then obviously I think we'll get into the Q&A and we'll wrap up here. But I think to that point, Kim, we have a lot of people who says, oh, we want more black people to vote Republican just as long as you never have to speak to a Democrat to do it. And it's like, well, how in the world does that work? Right? If 80% of the black people are registered Democrats and are voting for the Democrats. So on some basic level, talk to us about this strategy that you have about getting in those doors, and then also focus on just how critical it is for people to get involved, be it to give $10 or be it to knock on 10 doors, because as I tell people all the time, if every single American that was following the RNC on Facebook knocked on 50 doors, we wouldn't lose another election.
Right. Right. If they stop cheating.
So, it's about addressing the difficult issues, and I know you were sharing, Kim, like, change the message, but for me, like, even though it's interchangeable, change the message, tailor the message, but I still gotta show them, like, I'm still conservative, but getting them to see through my lens how it relates and correlates to their life, if that makes sense. So whether we're still discussing, okay, how I shared about affordable housing, but in my district, on the surface, the header is affordable housing. But then when you get granular and you come into the district, I'm talking about our homeowners that are being absolutely crushed within the district with no relief in sight. They're having to go outside of their district, outside of their neighborhood to get quality of life, getting the affordable things that they need in their district. They have to step out to come back in. It does not make sense. So when we talk about addressing these things, it's really about going back to everyone and tying it together, whether we're addressing small business, going to the entrepreneurs that we have in our community, letting them know what resources are out there, what tools, what policies already exist, because the reality is, anywhere, not just in urban areas, not too many people know too much about what's going on outside their doorstep in regards to politics. It transcends just like, oh, from the urban community to the suburban community, because it's just being handled. It's just being taken care of. So to Joe's point, and I'll wrap up on this, it's really critical to go back into these areas and relate to them on a granular level. So that's all I'm saying. All right, so let's pick it up.